What? What? Now, they tell me this next chap, by the name of Mr. Ian MacPherson, first emerged via the Dublin Comedy Store of 1983. That was a very long, long time ago. He will open the Comedy Store next Friday night in the project, and I think you're going to enjoy this. Ian MacPherson.
My sound effects. I don't know why I use them, because they're not funny and they irritate the hell out of the audience for the total duration of my act. They say you play the Olympia twice in your career, once on the way up, once on the way down. Great to be back. My wife left me this afternoon. First time I've got a laugh there. No. My wife left me this afternoon, 4:30. Still, time is a great healer. The first time she saw my act, she said, "Why the Dublin accent? It's a gimmick." When I started performing, I was the only person using one over in London, and now everybody over there is at it. I actually know of one performer who went to the trouble of being born in Dublin, which to my way of thinking is taking method comedy just a little bit too far. Actually, you people are weird. You've been staring at me ever since I come up here. But I think I know what it is. You're wondering how comedians can remember all this material. There's a very simple device we use. You'll notice I'm holding the microphone with one hand, and the other hand is secreted in the pocket of my trousers. Pocket braille. Now, I don't actually have to use this device myself because I know the act back to front. So I've got somebody else's act in there while I'm doing my own material. I'm having a quiet little chuckle to myself. That's a good one. Before I do any more material, I'd like, if I may, to read a letter from my mother. Fine. I did that on the radio last week. Nobody laughed, but it won the Samuel Beckett Award for Best New Radio Play. I first decided to become a comedian when I was at school. A small child, threatened with violence, says something funny. The old story. So anytime I saw a small child, oi! As soon as I collected enough good one-liners, I quit teaching. Yes, you'll notice through the course of this evening that there are people laughing in the wrong place, and there's also a certain amount of clapping going on. Apparently there's a group of Belgian tourists in, and they're having the acts translated as we go along. That clap there was, they just finished the letter from my mother. Good evening, Belgium. They'll enjoy that bit when they get to it. I'm sorry, I've just noticed a speck of dust in the spotlight here. Can you see me now? I live in London now, and as soon as I went over there, I experienced a very subtle form of racial stereotyping. I went to my local job centre. All they could offer me was my own television chat show. A man has his dignity. Fortunately, I'm a trained musician, so I took my triangle out busking. I chose a 5-movement classical piece. With the triangle, you don't actually have any choice in the matter. But the 2-hour pitch was up before it got to my note. I tried at one stage switching to jazz, but the triangle is not a jazz instrument. There's nowhere to put the cigarette. I have since, however, discovered that Irish people can do very well in London if they follow 3 very basic rules. Smile, talk crap, don't leave your suitcase on the tube. A friend of mine actually did this recently. He didn't do it recently, he did it 15 years ago. They let him out recently. And they said, sorry, wrong suitcase. Actually, oh, there's a few slow-reading Belgians there finishing the letter. That's not true. They didn't say sorry. Now, I like, I've been clapped there. That's a piece of political material, and I like balance on my act. Sorry, typing error. My mother is English, and she lives in Dublin. She lives in Clontarf at the moment, and on the side wall of our house, in very large letters, is written, Brit out. I don't think she's ever forgiven me for that. I'm going to have to go straight into my encore, I'm afraid. Which is built into the set to avoid disappointment to the artist. Now, I made a big mistake last night. I was, well, it wasn't last night, it was a few nights ago. I was playing Wembley Stadium, and I was supporting one of these popular music groups, and I was doing fine for the first 7 minutes. Then, as luck would have it, they spotted me. So I decided to throw myself on their mercy, and I screamed at the top of my voice, do you feel all right? And they screamed back with one voice, not too bad, thanks, all things considered. So I decided to get off. When I came back to do the encore, the audience had very wittily hidden. I eventually caught up with them in Motherwell. But as I'm sure you're all aware, it's an offence under Scottish law to do an encore in Motherwell if you haven't previously done an act there. So tonight I'm just going to stay right here. Now, the encore comes in the form of an example of my integrity. And before I do this wonderful example of my integrity, and I'm sure the compere will want to say a few more words about this legendary integrity when he comes back on. But before I do it, there's a very famous person in the audience tonight. And I can't actually see anybody out there because of the lights, but you're probably all, this being Dublin, you're probably all looking around wondering, is it me? Yes, that's right, applaud yourselves. But the very famous person said something very hurtful to me, I must say. She said, Ian, you obviously used to be a member of a double act. Lots of pauses, no punchlines. Cruel, but true. My partner at the moment is doing a tour of the north of England, and he's having a terrible time because he's got some absolutely fabulous punchlines. Nobody knows why. But people say nasty things like that to me. Sometimes they say nice things. Now, this is not by way of a joke. It's just a statement of fact. At Finsbury Park Tube on the way, I live at Finsbury Park. It's a bit of a rough area, and my child at the moment, I don't know, I always do that when I say my child. When you refer to your child, I never say my mother, my father, the Pope. But I always say my child. Do you notice the second time I say my child, the hand is slightly raised? Don't kids grow up so fast these days? But my child is, just by way of an example of how rough this area is, my child has just started at nursery, and they believe in teaching children about the realities of 90s Europe, I suppose. I was going to say 90s Britain, but I did a quick rewrite there, because it is in Britain. But 90s Europe. No, it's... you're rambling, MacPherson. Get to the point. No, they believe in teaching them about the realities of 90s Britain through the medium of nursery rhymes. For instance, 1, 2, buckle your own fucking shoe. But anyways, as I was saying, at Finsbury Park I did I did a little, just before I came over on the plane, I did a little spot of begging. Because I'll tell you, in this business, it's nice to have something to fall back on. But a couple of years ago, I was doing my little spot of begging, and who should come over to me? She was in London at the time, a marvellous woman, Mother Teresa. She came over to me and she said, if it wasn't for people like you, I'd be out of a job. Isn't that nice? The encore comes, as I say, in the example of my integrity. I was recently offered a television advertisement by the Irish Tourist Board. I said I'll only do it if it presents the Irish in a realistic light. None of this blarney crap. They said it's £12,000, English money. You'll be finished by noon. I said I'll only do it if I can keep the leprechaun suit. Integrity. Good night. That's what's called professionalism with microphones. I'd like to introduce the compere back on. Unfortunately, I don't know his name.